Hey guys, it's Tom Logan back with another video for you, and yes, this is going to be yet another 7970 video, and yes, we have got here finally. Well, I have had to do quite a few to get here. This one is going to be a little bit special. It's more what can be done rather than what you should do, and we're going to be benching four 7970s in Quadfire. Now, it's still very early days for the drivers. It's also still very early days for the games, which is something that we need to remember. I know there are going to be one set of people saying it's the driver's fault, and then there's going to be another set of people saying it's the game's fault. And obviously these are going to be NVIDIA fanboys and these are going to be AMD fanboys. Well, I really don't give a monkey's which one of those you are. What you all need to remember is it is very early days. Another thing, in all honesty, is 4 cards. Really, it's just about benching, really, isn't it? You're not going to be buying 4 of these and having them in your main rig unless you really need your brains tested, or you're just doing it so it looks good, because in the grand scheme of things, running 4 cards like this creates more problems than it solves. But what I'm going to do is, you obviously want to have a look. I've obviously got 3 screens behind me, which is kind of a hint where you can see where we're going with the games. But yeah, it's now time for me to actually show you what 4 of them look like nestled on a Rampage 4 Extreme. There we go then, peeps. I'll move the rig round in a minute so that you can get a better look, but if I move the tripod up, there we have the bench rig that we'll be using today. It's all hanging off of an Asus Rampage 4 Extreme. CPU is a 3960X at 4.8 GHz. H100 cooling, direct flow Noctua fans. There's GTX 8 RAM. The RAM's only running at 2133 though, because my CPU for some reason won't hold 2400 memory. It is definitely the CPU, by the way. It's just where it was the original step-in. They were renowned for not doing that great with memory. And then, obviously, we have 4 7970s there, being powered by 2 AX1200 watt power supplies. The reason why there's 2 is not because the AX1200 isn't enough. It's actually because there isn't enough PCI Express connectors on it. So I've just separated it off. I've got the first GPU and the system on the first power supply, and then and also the extra connector there for the board, just to give the PCI Express a little bit more power. And then I've got the 3 lower graphics cards on the second power supply, just so that you all know. And a lot of people always ask, how the bloody hell do I get 2 running at the same time? Well, literally all I do is short the power supply out so it feeds, and then when I turn the second power supply on, so that there's power going to the bottom 3 graphics cards, I then instantly turn the system on so it all kind of boots up together at the same time, and it works perfectly fine. So yeah, that's the system. Like I said, I'm just going to move it around again now so you can have a different look, but that's basically it, and that's all really. In fact, I'm just going to move the tripod so that you can get a better look. But yeah, as you can see though, I do want to draw attention to the fact there is very little room between the graphics cards, which isn't great. So during the testing, I am going to have the fans turned up just to help keep the cards cool, because obviously they're all going to be pulling, you know, hot air from the card below and stuff like that. So if you hear any fan noise, it's just because I've purposely turned them up just to keep the temperatures down a little bit, help with stability, because we're going to be running them all overclocked as well. And to be perfectly honest with you, this isn't the type of system that you'd have like this in your main rig at home. So if you wanted to do this at home, you'd want to have water cooling, really, so that you weren't going deaf. Because obviously, yeah, we do like to keep the cards a little bit cooler. But yes, other than that, that is the Lunacy bench rig that we're going to be using today. So I'm going to hush my mouth now and crack on. Okay then guys, so the first of the scores, and I think you'll all be just as surprised as I am, but yes, that does say 24,211 for a 3D Mark 11 run. Absolutely chuffing nuts. Don't really know what else to say. So I'm going to stop the video and I'm going to do an extreme run. Okay then guys, so swiftly moving on to the X score, which I might add is more than a single card P score. Again, quite nuts. 11,416 for a 3D Mark 11 X score. Not disappointing so far, is it? Right, I'm going to swiftly move on, crack out Vantage. Yeah, we'll run some Vantage. We'll see what sort of scores we get on that. Okay then, first of the 3D Mark Vantage scores. And that's a total score of 64,986. Now we need to remember that obviously we've got an AMD card and stuff, so physics doesn't really come into it, and it's the newer Vantage anyway. But I have to admit, this is probably the first time, if not one of the very few times, I think this is the first time that I've ever seen a GPU score go that much higher than the CPU score. Bearing in mind that we're running a 2011 3960X here, by no stretch of the imagination is it a slow CPU or not capable, but yeah. The GPU score was actually 74,286. CPU score was 47,243. We ended up with a total 3D Mark score of 64,986. Jesus Christ. Right, I suppose I best run the X score and see how stupid that is. Okay guys, so this one really is a tiny little bit batshit crazy, because that is an X score of 50,326. That is just so unbelievably high, it's unreal. I've definitely never ever seen an X score even remotely near that. I am absolutely gobsmacked. Yeah, unbelievable. I'm going to just move on quickly to Unigine, but I apologise for anyone that's going to have sore or bruised chins after that one. Right then guys, Unigine run. This is just an open and run Unigine run. No changes made to it at all. You can see all the settings and stuff there. But let's have a look. Frames per second, 247.8. That was a minimum frames per second of 26.6, but a maximum of 510.3. But that gave us a total score of 6,241. Yes, that is 6,241 for Unigine. I mean, that's a 3D Mark 11 sort of scale score, not a Unigine scale. That's just bonkers. Yeah, I'm going to quickly move on. Right then peeps, I just want to get something out of the way, because we are going to get a lot of bitching from, you know, either side of the camp. One thing that we need to remember is this is very, very early for the drivers. And by that I mean, you know what I mean, we're just on the release drivers. Well, yeah, it's just with 4 cards, really, to be perfectly honest with you, this is about benching, kind of getting numbers and stuff. And when we get to games, you are going to run into problems, because you've got to have the drivers that will work as well, but another thing which a lot of people seem to forget is it can also need the game developers to be able to tweak and patch the game so that they use multiple cards, and so very few people are ever going to be trying to game on 4 of these cards that a lot of people won't even bother with it. Now, some of the games will run really well, some of the games will actually get quite confused and only really use one of the cards and not really use the performance of all 4 as they should. And it's not really anyone's fault. This isn't something that I generally would advise anyone doing or anything like that, so I just wanted to clear it up to stop the AMD fanboys, you know, blaming the games and the Nvidia fanboys blaming the AMD drivers. Some things in this, especially like the benchmarks and stuff, work amazingly well, as we've already seen. But the games, like I said, it's still very, very early days to see what's going to work and what's not. If you look up in this top right left-hand corner, we've got the overlay there, so you can see the how much the cards are being used and stuff like that, and the temperatures. As you can see, temps are going up quite rapidly because obviously the cards are sandwiched so close together. But also with this, it's only reading 2 of the cards, but there is 4 there. They are all working, and putting my hand there, there's heat coming out of all 4 as well. But I'm not going to rabble on anymore, and we're only going to do a few games because, like I said, this is really just, it's pointless, to be perfectly honest with you. Now, Metro, you can see straight away that we've got one of the cards. The first card is at 97%, the second card is just sat there at 81%. And it does gradually go down throughout all of the cards as well. It is actually quite difficult to play like this. It was easier to play with the Crossfire. Oh dear, I missed him. It's quite confusing as well with the triple screens, because there does seem to be a bit of delay, and like I said, this is just a driver problem. Although the frames per second, it's 60 frames a second, it's quite healthy. How did he get around there? But it is actually quite difficult to play like this, and it's not normally like this with 3 screens. It's just there seems to be quite a delay with the where's he gone? We must have run over him already. Oh, that's a bit weird. Oh. What? They're falling out all over the place. Right, I'm going to stop the video quick and we'll move on to the next one. Right, now we're on to just a bit of Dirt 3. I've no idea why it's gone into windowed mode. I've looked through the graphics options and I can't see how to turn it off of windowed mode. So we're just going to have to play it like this. Don't forget, frames per second and everything's up in the top left hand corner. I'm playing this on a keyboard as well, so do apologise if I don't really do very well. This is with the game completely maxed out, by the way. 73.9 frames per second there, top left. I'm bound to do something wrong where I'm going to be trying to talk to you at the same time and playing this on a keyboard. You can see the frames per second has gone down to like 60, so it's really not utilising all the cards at all. Now, he held it. Like I said, that's really no one's fault. It's just the way some of these things can be. I've had games in the past that have literally not recognised Crossfire at all and just used the first card. I've got a funny feeling Grid, the original Grid, was one of them back in the days when I used to have 4870 graphics cards. I do love it when people say I'm a fanboy, but I just use what I like at the time. There we go. But yeah, the some games just don't use Crossfire very well. Now, I'm not very good at getting past the cars. I normally end up hitting them, especially with a keyboard, because it's not the most precise of things. Oh, he let me pass. How nice. Bet that won't happen again. Sorry for the lack of audio, but I've just been too busy trying to get everything benched ready for NBA. I've not set the speakers up properly. Right, there we go, right to the end. So, time for us to move on and look at a bit of Batman. Right then guys, on to Batman. And as you'll see, the frames per second are ridiculously low, to the point where I would say these are probably on par with what you'd expect for one card. Yeah, it's just really not very good at all. I mean, I'll have a bit of a fly around the city, but it is so difficult to try and play this. One thing I will go over to though, if I can get over there. So I found this earlier. Right, turn around mate, come on. I have no idea why this up here, so maybe one of you can tell me. Why does it look like there's a cash machine up here? Well, it actually looks like a load of servers, but anyway. Yeah, it was just something I found. It's obviously something in the game, but I haven't got a clue. I really should play games more often, but I don't. I mean, this is what I was trying to talk to you about, where some of the games, I mean, we know Batman's not finished anyway. It really does need patching for DX11 and stuff, but I'm not going to bother trying to beat the inmates up or anything, because as you can see, 22 frames a second is pretty drastic. So, we've done some crazy benchmarks. We've seen some games. We've seen that games don't really go that well with 4 cards, at least for the minute. But I think it's time now to break off and go and have a good kind of conclusion and a good chat about this lunacy. So, that's the end of the lunacy. It's also a relatively short video for me, to be perfectly honest with you. And the benchmarks were just bonkers, as you know, we were all expecting, really. To be perfectly honest with you, they were a little bit better than I thought. Now, a lot of you out there may have seen some other results around online, and basically a lot of those were really overclocking the cards a bit more. For me to have been able to have done that, I would have had to have fiddled about with the BIOS a bit more, and do you know what I mean, tweaked them a little bit. Mine were kind of, I've got the normal kind of reference cap of 1025 on the core, so I couldn't really do much with it, you know, go much further. But we have a new king, and by that I mean this is completely waltzed past the results that we had before with the Mars 2s. Actually, it's a similar, really. They're not a lot different price wise, but we've definitely got much higher scores with these. Obviously we have the ability to overclock these, and we didn't with the Marses. But yes, over 24,000 with 3D Mark 11, which is a nut score. That's like 6,000 above what we had with the Mars. But the most surprising one was the extreme score, because that was over 11,000. Now that's more than a single card in P. So I was very impressed with that. It was almost the kind of scores that I was getting for a single Mars 2 in P score. So just to show you how, how well this was going, and that was obviously X. Now Vantage, I was a little bit perplexed with Vantage because I got 69,000, which is still a massively healthy score, especially with the new Vantage. But when it really kind of showed its head and showed how well it was doing was the X score, in that we had a 50,000 point X score, and that's just huge. Unigine, with a straight open it, run it, click the box, don't change anything, we got 6,500 points. So again, that's another it's monumental score, and one that I was massively impressed by, because Unigine does really go. Now when we were watching the videos and stuff, because I've obviously not watched any of it back yet, but the noise in the background, what you've got to bear in mind is that we've got 4 cards all sandwiched up against each other, so they're all pulling the heat from the card below, which is one of the reasons why I've always said you need kind of extra slots. I mean, with this benching malarkey, it doesn't matter anyway, because you're not going to be living with it. But for SLi and for Crossfire and stuff like that, you obviously want a slot or 2 between the cards, just so they can breathe a little bit better. If your cards are sandwiched right up against each other, not only are they pulling the heat from the one below, but they're not really, do you know what I mean? Even the card below isn't being able to ventilate and everything properly. So that's why they warmed up. I actually had the fan set higher to help keep them cool, and I still had a delta blowing over the top as well. That's why there was so much noise. Now, to be perfectly honest with you, with something like this, we can't give it a gold because it's noisy, doesn't necessarily work really well. But with the benchmarks were huge. So you kind of want to give it a performance award. But like I said, the reason why we did this was just because we could. There was no kind of, we think that you should be rushing all out and buying 4 of these cards and all the kit that we did. But it was more the fact of we wanted to know how good they would be if we tried. And it's also a nice one. We've obviously done a single card. We've done our old test rig versus our new test rig. We've done Crossfire. We've done triple screens. So we just thought, to round it all off, as if we didn't have enough work to do in the first place, we thought we'd do this as well. So be sure to go and check out, and I'm going to make them all pop up. Be sure to go and check out all of the other 7970 reviews I've finally done. And yes, I'm going to leave this one with you. We've answered it. We've got a new king. AMD is now, or this AMD rig, or this test setup is the fastest one we've ever done. We will see if that changes in the future. But for now, at least, with another crazy, just because I could video, this is Tiny Tom Logan, out.